Okay, so did Meghan Markle reportedly ring up Joe Rogan's team to push for a Spotify episode to get yanked? That's the whisper, allegedly. Some insiders claim there was a call. Others say the story's overblown. And the receipts? Kinda fuzzy, kinda conflicting. We're hearing hints of behind-the-scenes pressure, but no clear on-the-record confirmation yet. So let's sift what's cited, what's hearsay, and what's just vibes. If you love fast, level-headed tea, tap subscribe real quick and let's get into it. Because this rumor mill is spinning, but the screws look loose. Okay, quick rewind for the receipts. Back in 2020, Archewell Audio signed that splashy Spotify deal promising original programming and star power conversations. Fast forward to 2022, and Meghan's podcast Archetypes finally drops, debuts big, then wraps its first season and pauses, no second season greenlit. By 2023, the partnership is over, and a prominent Spotify executive publicly criticizes the project with some pretty sharp words, which fuels headlines and think pieces about expectations versus delivery. Layered into all of this is the 2022 moment when Harry and Meghan's team raised concerns about COVID-19 misinformation on Spotify, saying they'd been urging the platform to address it. So you've got a content partnership trying to soar while a platform-wide policy debate is playing out underneath. The vibe becomes complicated, creative rollout on one hand, brand safety questions on the other. Then, when the show doesn't return after that first season, the breakup hits and the narrative hardens around what worked, what didn't, and who's accountable. No scandals proven here, just a timeline that shows high hopes, delays, a big launch, public criticism, and an exit. And that's the context you need before we get into the why, the money, and what it means for their next media moves. Okay, so here's the tea making the rounds. A new rumor claims Meghan's team allegedly reached out to Joe Rogan's producers after a recent segment mentioned her. And there's reportedly a screenshot of an email floating around that supposedly asks for removal or edits. But the verification is wobbly at best. Receipts look messy, and everyone's still squinting at pixels. The image shows what looks like a producer thread and a politely worded note. But the timestamps are clipped, headers are cropped, and the sender details are partly blurred, which is classic, could be real, could be clout. Some people point to odd spacing and mismatched fonts as red flags. Others say PR teams do this kind of outreach all the time, so nothing wild if it's legit. We haven't seen Rogan's camp confirm or deny, and Meghan's side hasn't commented as of now. Important to flag. No evidence of legal threats in the alleged message. More like a "can we review this" tone, which is common crisis comms. Still, if true, asking for edits on a show that thrives on pushback can backfire. Hello, Streisand effect. And if it's fake, it's just internet cosplay. Here's the vibe check. Look for full headers, consistent timestamps, and independent outlets verifying beyond reposts. Until then, treat it as alleged, not confirmed. And remember, creators rarely pull segments without a clear policy hit. So the next move will be telling. Are we sensing a quiet walkback or a louder clapback? Because either path says a lot about how both sides want this to land. Here's the tea. The pattern fits like a glove because when controversy flares, there's allegedly a round of private pressure behind the scenes. Calls, emails, friendly chats, followed by very polished public statements that sound principled but stay vague. Think, we support diverse voices paired with we enforce our policies and not much else. And it's the same energy we've reportedly seen before with Joe Rogan's catalog, where Spotify quietly removed episodes in batches without naming a specific catalyst, leaving observers to connect dots between internal concerns. Spotify's line is the usual creator autonomy drumbeat, saying hosts decide their own bookings within platform policies, which sounds like a polite way of saying, we don't micromanage. So if this happened, it would be at the creator level, not a corporate memo. And that's a big if. Because the smoking gun screenshot is catching heat, with some viewers alleging it looks doctored, pointing to odd fonts, off-center spacing, and timestamps that don't match the public feed. Others reportedly ran contrast checks and claim the overlay behaves like a paste, not a native UI element. Counterpoint, fans argue minor UI drift happens across devices, and cached assets can glitch. So weird pixels aren't proof of fakery, but without a statement for Rogan's side, or a clean chain of custody for the image, we're left with vibes and forensics, not verification. Plus, Spotify highlighting autonomy cuts both ways. because it neither confirms pressure nor rules it out. It just reframes responsibility. So right now, the story sits in limbo, alleged, debated, and very online, with more heat than hard receipts. Overnight, the comment sections went feral, split down the middle, censorship or just reputation management. One side said posts were scrubbed to muzzle critics. The other said moderation was overdue and lawful. Fair. But here's the sit that got missed. The timeline. People flagged a cached version of the page, reportedly saved at 8:43 a.m. It shows the disputed paragraph already gone, hours before the first public takedown notice appeared. If that timestamp is accurate, it flips the frame. It looks less like a reactive cleanup and more like a pre-planned sweep. Maybe they were bracing for a wave. Maybe counsel advised a quiet pull. Or maybe, as some commenters alleged, coordination happened behind the scenes with platforms. Not proven, just alleged. And the PR email, reportedly timestamped 9:05 a.m. hit inboxes before the main thread even trended. That sequencing matters. It suggests messaging-led moderation, not the other way around, which is fine if you call it brand protection. It's trickier if you're arguing neutral enforcement. Context isn't conspiracy, but timing shapes trust. Viewers saw posts vanish, then statements arrive, then policies get cited, in that order. So the flashpoint isn't only what was removed, it's when. And who knew first? If those clocks check out, the stakes shift from was it silencing to was it scripted? Okay, let's talk fallout and motive, because that's the tea everyone's sipping. If the allegations are true, this reads like a controlled burn before new launches, a tidy up to lock messaging, reassure partners, and glide into drop season. Reportedly, that means tightening comms, freezing messy comments, shelving risky collabs, and teeing up a fresh era storyline so retailers and sponsors feel safe, which could buy runway and protect pre-orders. Though the trust tax is real, expect short-term boycotts, frosty influencer vibes, and cautious media until the sentiment cools. But if the claims are exaggerated or flat out wrong, then we may be watching strategic outrage farming, a calculated spike to seize the feed, drown out rivals, and route all curiosity through owned channels, with alleged leaks, big feelings, and convenient villains driving clicks that later convert into limited drops and high CPM moments. While the creator steers the narrative and grows list power, the costs there are reputational fatigue, partners reportedly spooked by volatility, and a wider audience side-eyeing the theatrics. Either way, the motive circles brand control and narrative power. Secure the stage, then launch. So the timing is the tell. Watch for synchronized apologies before pre-order windows, sudden learning posts ahead of collab teases, embargo-friendly interviews, and a rapid cadence reset. Follow the money and the calendar, because both scenarios can coexist. Clean up for the shelves, outrage for the clicks, and all roads leading to the next drop. So, did she call? As of now, nothing confirmed. The alleged call lives in anonymous DMs and screenshots that remain unverified. Source claims are reportedly floating, but receipts are shaky. Could be real, could be a game of telephone. We don't know, and we won't pretend we do. We're parking it in the alleged pile until solid sourcing shows up. Next, we trace the timeline and the contracts, public dates, filings, appearances, and who was where, when. If the clocks sync, the rumor strengthens. If they clash, it crumbles. Until then, treat it as reportedly, not reality, and keep your tea lukewarm.